Friday edition, Mr. Irrelevant, presented by Door County Distillery. I'm Alex Strouf, hanging out with you from the Gruber Law Offices. One call, that's all studio. At the Avenue, beautiful downtown Milwaukee. Joshy DiMaggio will be here at some point. He's a big deal these days, man. You know, we bring him into Mr. Irrelevant when I arrived in Milwaukee back in April. He started attending every show, right? 3 times a week. Joshy was here. He was ready. And then the last 2 months, it's been sporadic, right? Oh, I've got a prior obligation. He's a big shot. This is what it is. Hunter Vaughn, though, on Wilde and Tausch this morning, in for Jesse Nelson, who worked too late, apparently. So Hunter produces 9 to noon, and guess who still shows up on time? Tiny Hands is here. What's up, Tiny Hands? How are you?
I'm great. Super excited for Prep Mania tonight. I'm just going to keep bringing it up all the time.
Yeah, Muskego-Mukwonago trip to state on the line. It's been the biggest rivalry in all of Division I football the last 20 years, 30 years. And they are conference rivals. Are you calling the game tonight?
I am calling the game with the Dean.
You're a machine, dude.
Yeah. And then
Respect.
I've got College Game Day Saturday. I'm just a grinder.
Good for you, man. Yeah, that's great. That's great. I filled in on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy this morning with Joshy. In Gabe Neitzel. And I wanted to do a subject. I didn't realize Joshy wasn't going to be here when we talk about the Packers' identity, so I'll just have to quote him when we get there. But he had a great line on the Packers' identity, which we will talk about before Jim Rutledge joins us in about 20 minutes to talk all things Bears. Jim Rutledge, of course, host of Jim, Matt, and Molly, 4 to 6 ESPN Madison. He will join us. I'm going to give Hunter the floor for about a minute later in the show. Hunter, I haven't told you this, so this is me telling you this. I'm going to give you somewhere between 30 seconds and a minute to explain to me why I should believe in the Badgers tomorrow against number 1 Oregon. I don't know that you believe in them, but I want you to try to convince us to believe in them.
Okay.
So we will do that. We will take a look at our underdog picks. We will play a little what we learned. We might sneak in a little Mike Tyson, Jake Paul chatter. Everybody I know is intrigued by this. And I can't remember the last boxing match. I remember talking to this many people, and this many people go, yeah, I'm going to watch it. Maybe McGregor and Mayweather in 2017, I think that was. Maybe 2018. That's the last boxing match I can remember that this many people had intrigue in. So we'll get to that all a bit later. But let's start with Packers-Bears, Sunday at noon at Soldier Field in Chicago. Packers only 5-point favorites now as the line continues to move in favor of Chicago, despite all the dysfunction, 3 losses in a row, firing their offensive coordinator. All a little disastrous down there in Chi-Town. But the line keeps moving in their favor. You're probably annoyed with me if you listen to more than Mr. Relevant on ESPN Wisconsin. How many times I've said the 2-word phrase, 0% this week. I think there's a 0% chance the Bears win. I stand by that. Now, if you want to be literal, of course, there is more than a 0% chance that the Chicago Bears win. Of course, I know that. But in my brain, which is a weird one, we can all admit that, the mental gymnastics I'm doing lead me to 0 outcomes where the Bears have more points than the Packers at the end of the game, right? Unless something ridiculous happens. And by that, I mean Jordan Love does what Jared Goff did last Sunday night. Throw 5 interceptions. Sure. Then you could convince me there's a route to the Bears' victory. Because when Jordan Love throws interceptions, at least the math we have done this year, and you know math isn't my specialty, but this one's easy. He's thrown 10 interceptions, 2 pick sixes. 20% of his interceptions have gone to the house. Don't love that. So if he was to throw 5, that probably means 1 is a pick 6 at the very least. Right? So maybe that's the scenario in which the Bears could win. But the Packers' play offensively would have to be absolutely detrimental to their success in this game. Like, they would have to be anemic offensively in order for them to lose. The defense would have to not look like what we've come to expect this defense to look like. And the Bears would have to do a lot of things well that they haven't done well really all year. Most of their wins are against bad teams. So all in all, I still view this as a complete Packers win and probably a Packers rout. Of course, there's a scenario where this could be a 21 to 16 or 17 game. I just don't think that's likely. But the other part of this for the Packers is this is kind of a must-win game. And I don't want to use that. I don't want to overuse that term down the stretch here. 8 games remaining for the Packers. Because must-win usually implies, hey, if you lose, you're mathematically eliminated. Or if you lose, you're not going to win the division. Which is how I look at this game. This is the first time since 2005 the Packers have started in division play 0-2. They have lost both of their divisional games, obviously one to the Vikings and before the bye to the Lions. First time since 2005, which is a wild stat. The Packers have started division play 0-2. You need to win this game, A, to not go 0-3 in the division, but also you probably need to go 6-2 or 7-1 in these final 8 if you want to crack at the division. I think 13-4 will probably be good enough to win the NFC North. And obviously one of those wins needs to come over the Detroit Lions. But the team we've seen so far probably isn't 7-1 down the stretch good. You know, let's say they lose to the Niners and win out. That's 7-1. It's possible, sure. It just doesn't seem likely. But that would be what they have to do here down the stretch in order to win the division. And that, of course, starts and includes this Sunday's game against the Bears. The other part of this is the Packers need to get right on both sides of the ball. And this seems like the best opportunity, at least in the next couple of weeks, to do that. Against a floundering and drowning Bears team, a dysfunctional Bears team, and a team that allowed 9 sacks to the New England Patriots last week. It seems like the Bears' offensive line might get a little bit of an upgrade in comparison to last week. But for how bad the Packers' pass rush has been this season, it's their biggest flaw, without a doubt. Outside of, in terms of positional groups, it's their biggest flaw. Defensive line / the pass rush unit. They need to get home. They need to find a way to get home. And to see what the Patriots were able to do to them a week ago, I'm going to need to see 4 or 5. I don't need to see 9 necessarily, but I need to see them get home in terms of sacks 4 or 5 times on Caleb Williams. Because if they don't, that tells me, this could be worse than we thought. Now, granted, since the last time we've seen the Packers, they have, on paper at least, gotten worse in terms of the pass rush unit. They traded Preston Smith 2 days after that Lions loss, went into the bye week last week, and here we are getting ready for their return from the bye. Down a man who was a starter on their defensive line. So Sunday serves as a get-right game for this Packers pass rush, definitely the pass rush, but also this defense in its entirety. That's the thing I need to see. And then obviously offensively, you want to see Jordan Love play some turnover-free football. You get a week off, you're healed up, you're probably as healthy, you're as healthy as you've been since week 1 against the Philadelphia Eagles. Love needs to play one of, if not his best game of the season on Sunday. Right? These are the things that would encourage you to think, okay, the Packers are a championship-level team, right? 7-4, then you take on San Francisco at home next week. Those are some of the things I'd like to see. Curious what you think. Feel free to chime in. ESPN Madison, ESPN Milwaukee on YouTube, ESPN Madison on Facebook, or get me on Twitter, @Alex_Strouf. It's a must-win game for those reasons, right? Can't go 0-3 in the division. Want to still have a chance in the division. And got to stay par with the NFC, which is a really good division. You're technically the 7th seed as it stands right now. So stay alive, stay in that playoff race, and continue to elevate your record. And hopefully, the dominoes are going to fall where they will. But if you stay at 3 losses when you play the Lions in a couple of weeks, you're giving yourself a chance to have a chance to still win this division. I don't think it's over, but you've got to have a really good record down the stretch here. 8 games left. Go ahead, Hunter.
I feel like we've kind of hinted around this, and I tried to bring this up a little bit on Wilde and Tausch this morning. But it also feels like when it comes to this must win, that the Packers need to just say, we are going to be the more dominant team. They're going to put their just foot on the Bears' throats and just crush them and just say, this is who we are. We're just going to beat the crap out of you, and have that sort of mentality that you see from a team like the Lions that you're trying to chase, and actually show that they can do that. And I feel like that's almost the more important thing that I want to see out of this team.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all, right? I mean, this should be, at least, an all gas, no brakes type game. Something Matt LaFleur said time and time again over his course, here 5.5 years in to his tenure as the Packers head coach. All gas, no brakes. And look, and we'll talk with Jim Rutledge in about 10 minutes about it, but I don't know if the Bears are actually as bad as they've been playing the last couple of weeks. I think they are. But and I'm curious to hear from Jim here in a bit, is there a way to say, hey, maybe they're not actually that bad? Maybe they can compete with the Packers, and maybe they won't run away with it. But to your point, Hunter, in a lot of our heads as Packers fans, you get a week off, you're pretty much fully healthy. As I mentioned, Jordan Love as healthy as he's been since week 1. This serves as a really good opportunity for the Packers to just go light up the scoreboard and continue to big brother the lowly Chicago Bears, right? Like, that's how I view it. So I could be wrong. I may be proven wrong. But in my head, as I've said 8 million times this week, 0% chance. I can't come to a conclusion where the Bears win. So that's that. Joshy DiMaggio has arrived, and I'm glad it was good timing because I didn't want to do this topic without Joshy DiMaggio. It was brought up this morning on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy with myself, Gabe Neitzel, and Joshy. What's the Packers' identity here as we enter the second half of the season? I thought Joshy nailed it. It doesn't give you a ton of encouragement as it stands, going into week 11, but Joshy's answer on this was really good. Joshy, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I have gotten feedback on this statement. People really enjoyed it, which has made me happy today, just to pat myself on the back.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's more neutral than some people have interpreted it as, though. I said the Packers are young, they're explosive, and they're mistake-prone. When I say mistake-prone, we all make mistakes. Some of them we stop making as we get better and develop. I think the Packers are a team that has the ability to be really, really, really good. The reason they haven't been that good is those mistakes. We've seen them in prior forms of this team, stop making some of those mistakes. Everyone's going to, in a football game, make mistakes. Those other guys are paid over there as well. That is a thing that's going to happen regardless. But the mistakes have been a lot of self-inflicted mistakes, and they've just happened at a frequency that makes it really tough to win football games. You just think back to the last Lions game. There's probably 4 plays that if they go the Packers' way, probably change not necessarily the outcome, but at least where the game was at the end. I don't know if the Packers win that game, but it's a much closer game that feels a lot better. There's also games they won with erasing some of those mistakes that they wouldn't have had to be in a last-second field goal or a situation to go down and score.
Yeah.
So right now, mistakes are part of their identity. It doesn't have to be all season long, but it's been a big part.
So really well said by you. And, I asked you this question this morning, and I've been thinking about it since we had that conversation, 4 hours ago at this point. Can they shed that identity, that part of their identity? Because the young and explosive part is complementary. You want that as part of your identity.
Yes.
The mistake-prone part, of course, you don't want part of your identity. But you're completely correct when you say it is part of the Packers' identity here through 9 games. A, can you shed the mistake-prone part? And B, how long does it take before you can shed that from your identity? Because if Jordan Love doesn't throw any interceptions and the offense doesn't turn the ball over against the Bears, we still have a much larger sample size than just that one game post-bye. So how long in your estimation, and what do they have to do in order to shed that from their identity? Because that's not only the interceptions, too, we should highlight, right? That's the drop passes.
Yes.
That's the penalties.
Yes.
It's self-inflicted wounds, what we often refer to them as. So it's obviously going to take more than a game. Does it take the entire second half of the season? That's the part I can't quite figure out.
I think for all of them to disappear, they need all 8 games. Mistakes are a thing that aren't necessarily going to 1 week be there and be gone the next. Like this week, Jordan Love might not throw an interception. He might not throw one for 2 weeks, but he might have a game in his future where he throws 2 or 3. I think as long as those things improve and there is... Basically, you know it when you see it. The old pornography case from the Supreme Court many years ago. You know it when you see it.
Oh, okay.
You'll know when you see it. When every time Josh Jacobs seems to rip off a 12-yard run, and I'm not going, well, where's the flag? Let's wait for it. Or a procedural penalty or jumping off sides. All those things, like, you'll know it when it happens. And I think, like, I don't expect Sunday. No more mistakes. They're gone. Like, Dontavian Wicks is going to drop more passes, but does he drop as many?
Right.
Does he drop only 2 the rest of the way? Does Jordan Love only throw 2, 3, 4 interceptions over the next 8? Like, it's a really hard thing to chart, but you'll know it and you'll feel it because the way the game goes, it won't be like, well, here we go again, Jordan, or there you go, Dontavian.
I'm just so taken aback by the analogy made there.
That was a dynamite analogy, Josh. Great job.
Thank you, Hunter. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. You'll know it when you see it. Well, did you need to tell us what that was from? I don't know. I think it would have been an effective analogy without it, but
that is historically a very significant Supreme Court case.
I'm well aware.
That I think applies to a lot of things, because I would love to give you a real clear answer, but I don't have one. And the best way is you'll know it when you see it.
You'll know it when you see it. When it comes
to porn.
You really need to double down.
Yeah. One more.
You're the best. So all in all, the in-betweens of that analogy, very good and very correct. And, I'm still holding out hope we're going to see and look, it's not going to be to the level that we saw a year ago. And there was the slip-ups a year ago, right? Like everybody points out that Monday night New York Giants game where Tommy DeVito outdueled Jordan Love and the Giants beat the Packers. Outside of that, it was a pretty clean second half of the season, both for Jordan Love, who only threw one interception in those 8 games, but also for the Packers overall, right? They looked like a really good team. They hit their stride at the right time. I'm still holding out hope that can happen, right? This is a team that's not playing its best football and will be over the course of the next 8 weeks. I don't know that Love will be as efficient in terms of not turning over the football as he was a year ago, but I still think this is a team that we can go, okay, that's what we expected earlier in the year, right? I mean, when we came into the season, it was, I think back, ironically, the same group we had this morning, myself, Gabe Neitzel, and you, Joshy, we did the schedule release show. What did we say? Did we land on 11-6 or 12-5? We all had the same record with different losses. 12-5. Because they need to go 6-2.
Shefty predicted it.
We'll see what Shefty's prediction turns out to be. I tend to agree with him, though. I think 6-2 down the stretch would make sense. I worry a lot about that Lions game, because that's going to ultimately dictate, there's still 4 or 5 weeks. I think there's 4 weeks left after that game of the NFL season. That's going to dictate whether or not you have a puncher's chance in the division. If you win that game in a couple of weeks, you're still alive. But
yeah, I've kind of dismissed the division at this point.
Have you? You've given up on it?
The Packers would need a lot of help at this point. They've got they've got the tiebreaker and a 2-game advantage.
Yeah, I mean, they only have 1 loss. The NFL
Bears,
season's long, though.
The Bears seem like a 2-3 loss team. That's what they feel
Lions.
like to me right now. Yes, Lions. Sorry. Bears week. Talking about the Lions.
Yeah, I understand.
I was thinking like a 15-4 second half from Jordan Love, I'd be thrilled with. I think would be very, very good. Because
15-4. Yeah. He had 15 touchdown passes in the first 9 games. So
yeah.
Be fair.
And I think, cutting 6 interceptions away and, playing in all of those games as well.
Massive improvement.
Would be a massive improvement. And with the offense moving that way, you can start to tell your story. That means Josh Jacobs effective. That means there's probably less drop passes. Like, all those things start to connect all into one thing. They all start to coalesce and make one big happy family. Coalesce too big for you?
Yeah.
Hunter, what's the ruling?
It shouldn't be too big for someone with a college degree.
But why'd you need to take the shot of with a college degree?
Oh, I'm sorry. It was UW-Stevens point, so.
Wow. Big one for the Pointers this weekend. 1-8 on the year, taking on UW Lacrosse. Big one.
Got to get a 2 in that win column.
Yeah, they're not. Lacrosse is good. But hey, one can help. Anyway. Hey, I had a couple bourbons last night watching Thursday Night Football. It's delicious. And you know where the bourbon was from. It was Door County Distillery. Locally produced, handcrafted, award-winning spirits made locally in beautiful Door County. If you're like me, it's whiskey season. Bourbon. Single malt whiskey, 27-time gold medal award winner for Door County Distillery. Rye whiskey. Or anything else to help elevate your tailgate, your gathering, your party, your holiday season. Door County Distillery, doorcountydistillery.com. Gins, vodkas, rums, brandies for your old fashions. And I mentioned the delicious array of whiskeys. They're in retailers all over the state. Madison, Milwaukee, Green Bay, Stevens Point, La Crosse, wherever you are. Door County Distillery is available to you in your nearest retailer. And you can also check out their tool online to find whatever product you're looking for. doorcountydistillery.com to find that map. Coming up next, Jim Rutledge. Respectful Bears conversation with our buddy Jim Rutledge from Jim, Matt, and Molly, my favorite Bears fan. Joins me on the other side. It's Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf. Fall is here, and once again it has me asking the question, where in the world is Door County Distillery today? It brings me to the great Liberty Station off the Beltline in Madison. Let's go into Liberty Station. Always a good time to enjoy a Door County Distillery Old Fashioned made with the delicious cherry brandy, which of course is infused with famous cherries from Door County. Whether you're making an old fashioned, just splashing in some lemon or lime juice, or just mixing it with a soda, nothing better than the cherry brandy from Door County Distillery. You can enjoy it everywhere, whether it's a tailgate, a holiday gathering, or you're sitting out at the patio right here at Liberty Station. Do it right with the Door County Distillery Cherry Brandy. Check out their website with a huge list of unique cocktail recipes at DoorCountyDistillery.com. That's DoorCountyDistillery.com. That is DoorCountyDistillery.com for our friends at Door County Distillery. All right. We did this twice last year. We're going to do it again this year because the Bears seemingly always find a way to find themselves in a hole of some sort. They fire Shane Waldron, their offensive coordinator, earlier in the week. They've lost 3 in a row. It's a disaster. And my favorite Bears fan joins me now. Jim Rutledge, host of Jim, Matt, and Molly, joins me from the Everlight Solar Studio in downtown Madison. Jimmy, deep breath. I'll be respectful as I always am, or at least try to be. How are we feeling after the week that's been for the Chicago Bears?
I think on the outside looking in, there is this imaginary idea that Bears fans aren't used to this. I mean, this isn't that bad of a week. I said it before.
Fair point.
It's frustrating. They've squandered, most likely, the first year of Caleb Williams on a rookie scale deal. That's frustrating. But this isn't other years like when they let go Nagy's last year in Chicago. They had to gut the roster. They were bloated. They were old. They didn't have any salary cap space. They had Mitch was on his way out. You had nothing at all to build for. And I've seen that before. So those are the ones, or like when you fire Lovie Smith after 10-6, then you bring in Mark Trestman, and then it's a disaster. Like that's depressing. You go from 10-6 and just missing the playoffs, and Lovie Smith, the coach with the best record against the Packers as a Bears coach, and so like those are more like, oh my God, like this roster. Obviously, there's problems, but they gutted it, and it's young. It's got plenty of salary cap space, and it's got a quarterback who I think most of the NFL still believes in. Because, look, you can just look at Jordan Love. You don't have to be the best quarterback in your own draft class. He might be fourth to be a great quarterback.
Okay, so are we already saying that Caleb Williams is going to be worse than Jaden Daniels long-term, or are you saying just right now?
No, I'm just saying that there is a world, which I think fans in general forget, that it's not either or. Like, they both could be very good. Like, they both could be really great quarterbacks. Yeah. I think still out of the two of them, if you went off of, let's say, Jordan Love's draft class, it is still more likely that Caleb Williams has that Joe Burrow-type ceiling and Justin Herbert-type ceiling. Jaden Daniels, and we saw it a little bit last night, what Washington did with him early on to get him going and to get him confident was really smart. But Cliff Kingsbury's
impressive, yeah.
Cliff Kingsbury's offense after week 8 for his entire career has usually fallen off a cliff. And Jaden Daniels early on was very much of like, hey, short passes, quick reads. If it's not there, read it. And that's still, he's getting better and he's gotten confidence. So I'm not saying he's not going to be a good quarterback, but there is a cap to how they're doing it. Now, the reverse on the extreme side of it is Chicago with Caleb Williams. They had him running no-huddle offense. They have him calling every protection. They have him calling every audible. They have him directing players out there. So they might be, paralysis by analysis with Caleb Williams. I heard Nate Tice on a podcast saying, look, he's capable of doing all that, but why ask him to do everything? I mean, we just saw a story about how when Jason Kelsey retired, this is the first year that Jalen Hurts is calling the protections. It was Jason Kelsey in Philadelphia. So I do think the biggest fumble the Bears have made here is with their coaching staff.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. So there's no worries that they've already ruined Caleb Williams' psyche?
No. There's a lot of sacks. I will give you that.
There was some hesitation there.
No, because I would say it like this, that he had 3 games this year before these 3 where he looked every bit of a future, like Aaron Rodgers type franchise quarterback. He's still not turning the ball over. He hasn't thrown an interception in 3 games. Now, I think the big thing for Caleb Williams is they're trying to get him to play ball. But my understanding about this team is that they basically straight up either hated or didn't respect Shane Waldron at all. And he was tuned out very quickly. I mean, just for background for those who are not Bears fans, they had to beg Shane Waldron to, one, hold them accountable. Mercedes Lewis, former Packer, had to hold a team meeting after like 2 or 3 weeks, say, hey, you need to call us out if we're not doing our job. Like, you're not doing that. And then, can you also script the first 30 plays like every other offensive coordinator? Like, those are two things they had to ask him to do. And then there's this other little bit here. The Packers, the Rams, there's other teams out there that run this Sean McVay offense. And you talk about formations. The Packers are, much like the Rams and every other team that runs this offense, the Falcons and others and the Vikings, are like, all those teams are between 25 and like 32 as far as the amount of formations that they run. The Bears, who are supposedly running this offense, are 8th. So and then here was the other part that was pointed out, and again, I'll give the credit to Nate Tice, that he could watch the tape and you knew what the Bears were running because they only had one play out of that formation. Sure. And so, like, those are the things that drive me insane as a fan, because you're not making Caleb Williams get, like, gun-shy as far as getting sacked too much or things like that. I think they need to ask Caleb to, like, hey, I understand you want to be a pocket passer. Like, if you watch him, he's almost staying in the pocket too long and not making these big-time throws and also trying to go through all of his reads every snap instead of, like, hey, if the first throw's there, just make it. And just let it go. Because he's not trying to be running around Caleb Williams at USC. It's more of, I'm going to stand here in the pocket and I'm going to go through all my reads and then I'll go back to my first read. When I think sometimes he'd be better served to just let it rip.
Sure. Joshy DiMaggio has been looking forward to this conversation all week. So he's already called for the ball, Jimmy. So I'm going to pass it over to Joshy DiMaggio. Yeah. Joshy, I just want to remind you, this is a respectful conversation. Be nice to our friend Jim.
Yeah. I don't know why you'd think I'd be rude to Jim. I like Jim a whole lot. I think Jim is like one of the most realistic Bears fans to ever exist. So he does make me mad when he talks about the Packers, but that's him doing his job. So I'm happy to talk to you, Jim. Is there any part of you that feels like the Bears' dysfunction is too big for Caleb Williams to overcome? Like, he has all the talent. We saw it happen there.
Yeah.
There is a part of me that is like, maybe this is more than just simply one guy's talent. It's like Big Cat said, the Patrick Mahomes instead of Mitch Trubisky draft pick. Is that creeping into your mind here at all at this point?
Well, and it's a good point. There's a couple things I would say more for optimism to avoid it. One, Kevin Warren is new. And whether the Justin Fields or Mitch Trubisky decisions were made under Ted Phillips, who was basically a businessman who they put in charge as president, Kevin Warren is at least a football guy. The GM actually now reports to someone in Kevin Warren. And I'm not saying he is the end-all, be-all, but that's a real NFL franchise structure. And the Bears didn't have that until 2 years ago. I don't even know if Kevin Warren's the right guy, but I'm saying that they actually built a real NFL structure 2 years ago by putting an actual football person in charge. So there's that step for it. The other part of it is what they have done is they put their backs to the wall immediately, because what's going to happen most likely is you're going to fire Coach Eberflus, and now here's the thing, you have to get the next hire right. And that's where they already have redlined this thing. And so to your point, yes, but they could go out and and this is the process. Ryan Poles, when he was hired, Eberflus was already hired. So Poles was kind of signing off on it. Now, Poles did keep him last year, which was obviously a massive mistake. But I do think that he'll get an opportunity to hire at least one coach, and hopefully it's the right coach. But the Bears have backed themselves already up against the wall by having their head coach, Matt Eberflus, make a horrendous decision. He brought in Cliff Kingsbury. He brought in Robinson with Atlanta. He brought in these other guys, and they went with Shane Waldron. So, that is a massive mistake. That's the fireable mistake for Eberflus. More than all the other stuff on the field and everything else. That's the mistake, is you brought in the wrong guy to develop a quarterback, and that's a massive mistake because, again, this team is checked out on him. And I am optimistic that this team's going to at least look functional going forward, because Thomas Brown, and I talked to some former Badgers that we all know, they said that either whether he was a great recruiter, knows ball, players are going to love him. Everything I hear about it is that he's just going to clean up some of the sloppiness from the team. The team's going to listen to him. He's a player's coach. So I think the team will look functional on offense, which I haven't looked in 3 weeks, and I think Caleb Williams can get back to improving, but that still doesn't mean he can reach his ceiling.
So before we get to Packers-Bears, the one note on Thomas Brown, as you bring him up, the interim OC, is he was in Carolina last year.
Yep.
Bryce Young did play his best game of his career still against the Packers on Christmas Eve. But outside of that game, he didn't do a great job developing Bryce Young. Does that come to your mind at all?
Well, he didn't call plays.
He did this last year.
He didn't call plays until the last 5 or 6 games.
Yeah, it was kind of similar to this situation, but a little bit later, I believe.
Yes, Frank Wright and Josh McCown were the guys there who were like McCown was the quarterback's coach. Wright called the plays and was the head coach. So Thomas Brown was not the guy there. So he's not right now. He is not here for development. The guys they brought in for development of Caleb Williams, and I think there's two separate conversations. Is Kerry Joseph from Seattle, who was quarterback coach out there, who would have been credited with some of the reinvigoration of Geno Smith's career. And then you have, I think, Ryan Griffin's his name, a former NFL quarterback. Those are the two guys working with Caleb Williams on a regular basis, along with his own private quarterback coach. So the issues with Caleb are not so much footwork, mechanics, or even pre-snap stuff. It's almost right now he doesn't trust the offense or too much is on his plate. So that's where Thomas Brown can come in and actually really build up a nice name for himself if he can just simplify it and say, hey, we're going to run it more. And side note, I think the Packers should do this more with Jordan Love. Like, hey, just because your quarterback's capable of doing some of these things doesn't mean you need to put it all on their plate. And I think that's what the Bears will do.
Totally with you on that, by the way.
Yeah, I think that's what the Bears will do. And so I think Thomas Brown is going to get a nice shine off of this because I think Caleb Williams is going to flatten out and look like a quarterback who will – the Bears just need to know at the end of this year, and I think they're already there, but they want to have optimism going into next year that Caleb will take another step with a better offensive coach. And Thomas Brown is a name that, look, he was an assistant head coach with the Rams. So he was obviously here with the Badgers for a year and then with Carolina. So he's a guy that had interview jobs for the offensive coordinator jobs throughout the league. And honestly, I like that hire more than the Waldron hire in the first place. So I do think Brown could have an effect in a different way like Antonio Pierce had on the Raiders last year of like you stop looking so sloppy and disorganized and like a bunch of idiots. Doesn't mean you're going to be great, but it just means you're going to stop throwing, I don't know, an option pass on the 1 yard line, 10 yards backwards to DeAndre Swift, or handing the ball off to a left guard, your backup left guard at the goal line. Like, those are the dumb mistakes that I think will be eliminated under Thomas Brown.
I want to make this therapeutic for you. So when you are complaining and bitching, I allow it. I love it.
Yes.
It's deserved. It's been a
but
weird
also
year
like
for
Packer
Chicago
fans,
Bears fans.
Like you laugh at the misery of some of the inane, stupid things that Shane Waldron called.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm lucky because obviously I was born into Packers fandom, and I've never seen this level of incompetence ever in Green Bay.
Yep.
And it seemingly happens every single year, just about in Chicago, outside of a few years. So it's just strange to me that it's the oldest rivalry in football, and they have gone such opposite trajectories as of late. So on that note, I do want to ask you, in your mind as a Bears fan, is this Packers-Bears rivalry still a real thing for you, or is it something you dread twice a year?
Well, those are two. It's kind of the same answer. Yes and yes. Like it is a rivalry without a doubt. I mean, we just I had Brian Bulaga on the Jump Around a couple weeks ago, and I asked him about it without any prep on it. He goes, "Absolutely. That's why Aaron Rodgers does the 'I own you.' The players get up. They know what it is. They get it. When the fans are talking trash and the Packers, they take pride. Here's how it's a rivalry. The Packers, just like the Badgers when they beat up Minnesota, there is a pride. There is we are not going to be the team that lets the Bears beat us. We're not going to be the team that lets this rivalry flip. Like, that is what they're carrying. And so, like, that's the pride and that's the rivalry. Now, is it a competitive rivalry? Absolutely not. But I always go back to this. Badger fans see literal red when they lose to Minnesota. And there's no angrier Packer fan in the world when you lose to the Bears. And that's how it's a rivalry.
It's true.
And I'm not saying, I think the Bears are 15-50 since Brett Favre arrived. So I understand. But, like, it was a rivalry when the Bears were doing the exact opposite for a long time, too. So it's always going to be a rivalry. You can't, discount, the entire NFL. Basically, this is the oldest rivalry in sports. You can't discount all that. Now, it's not competitive, but it's still a rivalry.
The Alex Strouf Research Department has shown that the Packers are 38-12 in the last 50 against Chicago. I mean, that is and that dates back to, I think, 1999.
Okay, yeah.
So pretty much in my lifetime, I was born in 98. The Packers 38-12 in the last 50 against the Bears.
I think the rivalry's in a weird spot now, not to anyone's fault. It's just both these teams are very, very young now, where there aren't guys that are carrying 6, 7, 8 years of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's probably going to ramp back up here now once these guys get to see each other more. And Jordan Love is familiar with the faces he's seen across the field.
And I'm rooting. I'm not rooting for the Bears actively, right? I don't want to. I don't want you to get me here, Josh, because I know you said I was a behind-the-scenes Bears fan in the offseason. But do I hope it's more competitive than it's been? Yes. Do I want Caleb Williams and Jordan Love to be rivals for 10 years? I do, because I think that it just creates more fun. Now, do I hope the Packers go 20-0 the next 10 years? I also do. But I hope they're more competitive than I expect Sunday to be. Jim, I've said all week, I am having a really tough time coming up with a scenario in my head where it ends with the Bears leading in the final score. In fact, I've gone as far to say as there is a 0% chance.
Jim, destroy him on this.
The Bears win.
I mean, I appreciate it because,
where are
like, now I have no worries at all. Like, it's just, all right, Bears were supposed to lose, whatever. I mean, 0% is a bit much because the Packers, like, they have their flaws. And weirdly, the Packers defense is arguably the worst defense the Bears are going to play the rest of the year. So if the Bears were going to get right, it would be against the Packers because you got the Detroit Lions, you got the Vikings, you got San Francisco, Seattle. Like, that's what the Bears got left on their schedule. So the Packers defense is actually the easy defense for the Bears. The Bears are going to get a dead cat bounce. I don't know if you catch that reference. I know you didn't catch the you know it when you see it reference earlier. But the dead cat bounce, they'll get that. Like, they're gonna play well for Thomas Brown. They're gonna be, like, locked in. They're gonna be excited for the change. I don't think they win this game, but Jordan Love and I would say him reverting back to a guy who is inaccurate and makes turnovers. That's how he was at Utah State. I mean, he threw 20 touchdowns and 17 interceptions his last year at Utah State in the Mountain West Conference, with completing 61% of his passes. And so Jordan Love has had this in him forever. So to the Packers' point, what I assume they're going to do, and I'll give the Bears, just any team, like a 25% chance of winning. I picked them in our thing just because I felt like I should. That'll be out on Sunday. But I think I have the Bears winning like 13-10. Like, if the Bears are going to win this, it's because their defense outside of the Arizona game has not allowed a team to score more than 21 points in like 12 straight games, or 12 out of the last 13 games. Their defense is good. Their defense can create turnovers. And even though they're missing Jaquan Brisker, they're still a very good defense. So, like, the Bears' defense showing up and the Bears' offense doing just enough, and Caleb Williams hasn't turned the ball over. Out of these two quarterbacks, Jordan's the one that turns the ball over, and turnovers are the equalizer. Like, that's how they do it. It'll be ugly. It would be like one of those games when the Bears, I think, after Walton Payton died, won the game by blocking a kick at Lambeau Field with no time left in a massive upset. Like, that's how it would be. It's going to be down to the wire, and it's just like you'd lose any other game if you're the big favorite, is by just playing sloppy, turning it over, not showing up. And that's a risk out of a bye week.
For sure.
But 25%.
LaFleur only 2-3 after the bye week. Okay. I mean, you still definitely think the Packers will win, but of course there's a scenario in which I think that's exactly what Josh said as well, actually.
Yes, Gabe and I were between 20 and 25%.
So honestly, you look at it like this, we spent, I think, like 2 weeks ago, spending a lot of time about paths to victory. And so, like, the Bears have one path to victory in this game. This is how I look at games when I pick them now. The Packers have, let's say, out of 10 chances, the Bears have one path to victory in this game. The Packers have 9 paths to victory. And so, look, anything can happen. You just don't know. But I would say there's one path to victory. And sometimes that works out.
That, to me, sounds a heck of a lot more like 10% than 25.
I'll give you that, but I'm just making up the numbers. But, yeah.
No, I know.
Yeah.
When it comes to Jordan Love, I'm curious how because you just kind of referenced it a little bit. You know, he's reverting back to what we saw not in the second half of last season. More turnovers, less accurate, more kind of chaotic. Which is certainly what he's been this year. I chalk a little bit of that up to the fact he's been injured since week 1, but not all of it, right? Some of the decision making has been completely poor. I won't defend him in that category. Now, my hope is he cleans up the decision making a little bit. He's a little bit more efficient with the football. I don't expect him to be second half of last season, Jordan Love, but I think he can be less turnover heavy, Jordan Love. You with me or no?
Yes, I think, look, a couple things. One, and I've said this, Alex, since you and I were chatting, that, like, when you were here in Madison, that I feel like Packer fans are going to lose their minds as I do a show with Matt Hamilton and calls Dak Prescott mid on a regular basis. And like most teams in the NFL would take Dak Prescott as their quarterback. Like I wonder
100%.
how Packer fans would react because honestly, statistically, Jordan Love's looking a little bit like Baker Mayfield. And Baker Mayfield is a quarterback that a lot of teams would take. Dak Prescott is a quarterback a lot of teams would take. Like, what if Jordan Love is those guys who are Pro Bowlers? And maybe not always Pro Bowlers, but not Hall of Famers. Like, that's a very good quarterback. And again, I would say 80% of the league would take those guys at quarterback. Now, you've had Favre and Rodgers.
I totally agree with you.
So, like,
Right.
that's what I'm getting at, is I think Coach LaFleur, and it gets back to what I talked about with Caleb Williams, just because Jordan Love's capable of making some big plays, maybe capable of showing flashes of Aaron Rodgers, maybe you need to coach him more like he's Dak Prescott and Baker Mayfield, which is let's lean on Josh Jacobs more and Emmanuel Wilson more.
Yeah.
And look, use Detroit as an example. Jared Goff is another guy. Like you use Montgomery, use Gibbs, use Marshawn Lloyd, use Wilson, use Jacobs. Run it more on the center. Go back to trying to make Jordan Love's life easy because I think that's when Matt LaFleur is at his best, and we saw that with when Malik Willis was in there. Just because you have the ability to go fast doesn't mean you always should be going fast. And I think at times with Rodgers, the Packers had that issue. And like maybe you just go the speed limit and win some games that you should win and take the opportunity for turnovers out of Jordan Love's hands. Because here's where he's not great. And this is not easy because we just talked about it with Caleb. When he runs play action and he can read the field and has time to look, he will make a cool, calm decision and let it rip and make the right choice. When he gets pressured, he is one of the worst in the league making decisions under pressure. And every one of his mistakes have been just a boneheaded decision, whether it's panic, whether it's cockiness in his arm, or all those things combined. He is not good, and most quarterbacks aren't, which goes back to like, and I'm not even talking play style, but when you talk tiers, there's like 3 or 4 elite quarterbacks in this league. The rest of them make mistakes under pressure and need help from their team and need their coach to make their life easier. And I think Jordan Love, at least this season, has fallen into that category. So just make his life easier and run the ball more.
I like your take on that. I mean, I think the ability to run the ball offensively has been one of their best this season as a team, right? I mean, Jacobs has had a great year, and some of the depth pieces behind him have been really solid. So I'm with you on that part. When it comes to the tiers of the quarterbacks, there's only one Patrick Mahomes. Jordan Love ain't going to be Patrick Mahomes.
It's like Mahomes. It's what? Mahomes, Jackson, and Burrow right now. And then everyone else is kind of all the same. Yeah. I mean, then there's another tier down.
Josh Allen is probably in there too. But, otherwise, I'm with you. Could Jordan Love eventually get to that? Maybe. But that remains
again,
to be
his ceiling's hard to figure out.
With how he started the year.
4 years in the league.
It really is.
The exact same offense. So, like, he has all of that hitting the ground running. And so now it's like, where is his ceiling? I honestly, like I said this before, I think what he did statistically at the end of the year, just flatten that out over the course of the season, again, 85% of the teams would take that. That might be who he is, which is really good.
I think there's like probably 3 quarterbacks that are bigger than their circumstances in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers for a long time was one. Peyton Manning, those guys. Right now, the only one I'm totally convinced is Patrick Mahomes. I think Lamar could get there still, but he hasn't been the best in the playoffs. I think what the case we need to kind of recognize here as Packers fans is Jordan Love is probably in that 6 to 8 guys who, if they play well with the right circumstances, they're a Super Bowl winning quarterback. And there's plenty of guys we've seen all throughout history that have either gotten to the Super Bowl or gotten really close to winning one. And that's I'm happy with that. I would love another Aaron Rodgers, but those guys are
but if you're
every so often.
Right, if you're a Jared Goff, if you're a Dak Prescott, if you're a Matthew Stafford type quarterback, Brock Purdy, another one, right? Where, you know what? I'm good with that.
You're not good enough on your own, but with the right coaching staff and the right people around you, you're more than competent to win a Super Bowl.
Totally agree.
I also,
Jim,
I want to share my Moneyball theory that someone will do. The Packers obviously shouldn't have done it, but like this idea that with this offense, when you have a guy like LaFleur or you see O'Connell in Minnesota or McVay out in Los Angeles, this offense, I think, would allow itself. And you might see it next year with San Francisco and Brock Purdy to be like, you know what? We're not going to pay you. We're just going to bring another guy. We're going to bring in another guy who is smart, who we run this offense right, and we run the football, and we put weapons around you, and we make your life easy, and you just have to make the easy throws. we can win like that, building an entire team around a quarterback that we don't have to pay $55 million a year. Someone's going to do it. It could be San Francisco next year because that's the next evolution with this offense and how it is so quarterback friendly. Some team's going to say, you know what? I'm not going to pay the quarterback. I'm going to go with a guy like Sam Darnold, or I'll go with the next one that says, you can be good enough. And all I need you to do is not game manage, just be a game manager plus. And, Jared Goff is above that category, but Brock Purdy might be in that category. And there's other quarterbacks who have gotten pretty far in this offense in that category. So I do think that's the next thing that happens with this offense with a guy like Shanahan or McVay, that they're going to say, you know what, maybe we don't pay a quarterback $55 million a year.
I like it. It's a good theory. Jim, you're a very rational Bears fan. I always appreciate the time catching up. I hope you enjoy the game regardless of the result.
I'm going to it, so I don't – God, I'll be at it.
Are you?
Yes.
Oh, boy.
Oh, jeez.
I know. The last time I think I went to a Bear-Packer game, and I don't think I'm wrong in this, it's when I left at halftime. They were down 42-0, the Bears.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't be mad if that was the case on Sunday, but we will see. I hope you don't have an angry ride home, but I imagine you might. Jim Rutledge, Jim, Matt, and Molly, weekdays 4 to 6, ESPN Madison. Appreciate you, brother.
See ya.
Oh man, always good with Jim, man. He really is rational. I will give him credit. He's probably a little hard on the Packers.
Right.
Which comes from a place of probably a mixture of spite and jealousy.
But we're also probably a little too positive about the Packers.
And we're probably a little too hard on the Bears.
Yes.
Especially me. I know I am. Right? 0%, yes. Really? Yes, really.
I think the accuracy is probably in between where you and I stand and where Jim stands.
Yeah.
Probably somewhere in the middle.
The truth is somewhere in the middle. Absolutely. So, anyway, good stuff. All right, well, let's stick in Madison. Tiny hands, I'm going to give you 60 seconds. You don't have to use all 60. I'm going to give you 60. This is a nice new fun thing we're doing where I time how long it takes us.
I don't know why you've made this decision. I really hate that you're holding up clocks to people's faces as you do it.
Here's the clock. All right, Hunter, I'm going to give you up to 60 seconds. Give us the case for why we should believe in the Wisconsin Badgers hosting number 1 Oregon, first time in 13 years. They have hosted the number 1 team in the country at Camp Randall Stadium tomorrow. Oregon, 13.5-point favorites. Hunter Vaughn, your time starts in 3, 2, 1.
Well, Jim mentioned paths to victory. The first one, going back to when number 1 came to Camp Randall, David Gilreath gets this game started with a bang. The Badgers have to figure out a way to do that. That's their first path. The second one, they've got to figure out some way to duplicate what Boise State did to Oregon's defense. I know it was Ashton Genty, but the dude ran for 192 yards on them. Maybe they can figure out something with the defense or their offensive line to run the ball against Oregon. Just keep the ball out of Dylan Gabriel's hands. Those are their 2 best routes. Anything else, that's not happening. I'm trying as hard as I can to have some faith in this team. That's the best I've got, is either they get a big explosive play early and just shock the Ducks, or they run it down their throats somehow and control the game.
Not bad. 54 seconds there from Hunter Vaughn. It's no disrespect to you. I thought that was a decent case. I have no more faith than I did 54 seconds ago. And again, that's nothing against you. I think you did your best job to try to convince me.
Literally, my best cases were one of the greatest plays in Wisconsin sports history, and literally the best running back in the country. Like that's what this Oregon team is. Like, there is a very real chance we can collectively hear TVs turning off across the state of Wisconsin at halftime. Like, that's how good this Oregon team is. They're insane.
Hopefully the radios stay on so you can catch ESPN Wisconsin College Game Day post game, which will I believe is with Hunter producing Joshy and Brad. Do I have that right?
I don't believe that's correct. I believe young Will here is producing.
Intern Will.
Yes.
Good stuff.
And then Josh and Brad are on the game.
Gotcha. Oh, that's right. Wisconsin Volleyball has another West Coast late night one. That's right.
Hunter will be there in spirit.
Hunter will be there in spirit and probably have you in the background.
Hunter, if you want to get angry and send me text, I will read them on the air.
Oh, I will probably do that. I'm sure a lot of those text messages will have to do with a certain defensive coordinator.
I don't think he needed permission. He was going to do that anyway. But I think the encouragement is...
I just wanted to put in the back of his mind, like, hey, this could be fun.
That's fair. Brett on the ESPN Milwaukee YouTube channel. Are you more confident in Wisconsin beating Oregon in football or Arizona in basketball? Oh, yeah, number 9 Arizona at the Kohl Center tonight.
That's Arizona to me in a landslide.
I think so, too. Yeah, I think so, too. And look, I do not believe they're going to win either of those games. Which one more confident? Arizona by a landslide, but also 10% confidence in that one.
Yeah.
And about 4% confidence in the Badgers.
I'm closer to 2.
So
Okay.
So if we're going to power rank the 3 games with the Packers, Bears, Oregon, Wisconsin, Arizona, are we going confidence level for victories for these teams? Bears have the least chance, then Wisconsin football, and then basketball has the best chance here of those 3?
I would agree, yes.
I would flip-flop the Bears and the Badgers.
You think
So you think the Bears have the most likely chance to win?
No, I think the Bears have a more likely chance than the Wisconsin Badgers football team.
Okay. So you're at...
Oh, okay.
So I've said 0% for the Bears. You're at about 2% for Badgers football.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, going to be a weird weekend. State of Wisconsin. Marquette and Maryland tonight as well, if you have any interest in that game.
They'd be power ranked number 1.
Yes, they would. In a landslide. In comparison with the Bears and the 2 Badgers teams. All right, good stuff. Let's go over to UnderdogFantasy.com, Underdog app. I've got my weekend picks in for Packers and Bears. I like 3 things in this game. I like 3. And if you've never played Underdog, use promo code GoodKarma at sign up. All you do, you look at projections on stats for players, and you click higher or lower on those projections. For Jordan Love, I like higher than 1.5 passing touchdowns. I think he's going to throw at least 2. I like Josh Jacobs higher, 70.5 rushing yards. And I like DeAndre Swift, longest reception, higher, 10.5 yards. I think he will have an 11-yard or more reception. Just a quick 3-pick entry. If you get all 3 right, 6 times your money. So $10 wins you 60, 100 wins you 600, 50 wins you 300. That's how much you can win. It's that easy on the Underdog app. All 3 of those seem too good to be true to me. Josh Jacobs, 70.5 on the ground, I feel like is going to happen. I feel like he's going to run a lot on Sunday. DeAndre Swift going to need to be utilized in the receiving game because they're going to be playing from behind. So 10.5 on his longest reception. I have a higher there. And I think Jordan Love will throw 2 touchdowns. Maybe 3. So I like all those hires. 6 times your money on Underdog and UnderdogFantasy.com. Use promo code GoodKarma on that. Get a 50% deposit match and a free pick at sign up using promo code GoodKarma, GOODKARMA. All right, we go to the laboratory. Joshy said, I'll be in the lab on Wednesday. I was not invited to the lab. I extended an invite.
Stay out of my lab.
To get to a mutual lab. Joshy said, I'm going to my personal lab without you. This is what I'm cooking up. Joshy, go ahead.
All right, we were starting out here with the Patrick Mahomes rushing attempts. They're currently at 3.5.
Chiefs Bills, by the way, Sunday afternoon.
Yes, I like the higher in that, and there's one reason. Whenever Patrick Mahomes ends up in games that are closely contested against good opponents, he ends up running the ball
he does.
a lot. So 3.5, I think this number is going to end closer to like 5, 6, 7. To me, that one felt like a no-brainer. The other one I love, and it's a guy we've talked about here more than probably any wide receiver that isn't a Packer, that's George Pickens. George Pickens is at 69.5
against Baltimore
receiving yards. I like the higher on 79.5. So you can bump it up there with the little ladder feature they have in there, and you can get it up to plus basically 1.16 on that one.
Yep.
And the other one is the one you mentioned, the Josh Jacobs rushing yards. I think the Packers are going to just absolutely hammer the ball with Josh Jacobs. I think they went into the lab and they said, we need more Josh Jacobs. Every time we give them the ball, it's successful. And I think the Packers are going to focus heavy on run, and they are going to run a lot early.
Can I add one more in there for you? And that would be tonight. So it could ruin your Sunday if I'm wrong.
That's why we use flex picks here on Underdog, because even if Alex Strouf betrays us, we can still get some of our cash.
I think I've got a gimme. So James Harden of the Los Angeles Clippers is 4 3-pointers made away from passing Ray Allen.
Oh, this is a good one. I'm all in.
From passing Ray Allen for second all-time in 3-pointers made. They play the Houston Rockets, his former team, tonight in Houston.
This is. I almost said something irresponsible. I love this.
Okay, I'm glad. Now, it's only 2.5 on Underdog, so I used the ladder feature to bring it to 3.5. It's 1.47. Adding that, if you get all 4 correct, $10 wins you $170.
I love it.
If you flex it, you can win up to $102.
You know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to flex it and not flex it, so I get a little juice on both.
Oh, baby. I'm going to flex it, so $10 wins you $102.30. If you get 3 of them right, you still win 2.5 times your money, $25. So just to recap, Joshy's with my James Harden ad. Patrick Mahomes, higher 3.5 rushing attempts. George Pickens, higher 79.5 receiving yards. Josh Jacobs, higher 70.5 rushing yards. James Harden, higher 3.5 3-pointers made tonight. I see Ron in the key on the YouTube chat. I'm betting this. Hey, Ron, get on the Underdog app. Promo code Good Karma at sign up, and you get 50% deposit match. Good value there, and a free pick on top of that. That you can add to this, even juice it up a little bit more. Okay, I think we cooked something up here, Joshy.
I feel so good about that one.
I do too.
I feel real good.
It's the way we go.
I've
into
already
the weekend.
spent the money.
He's already booked something at the steakhouse up the street.
Yep.
Yeah, he's already got a reservation there. Unbelievable. Good stuff. All right, let's get to what we learned. And I think this might be the first time ever I'm doing a follow-up from somebody else's what we learned. How about that?
Closing the loop?
Interesting.
No, not yet. The loop is still open.
Even further?
Putting the loop even further. So I believe it was on Monday's show. Might have been Wednesday. Joshy mentioned the Green Lake man that essentially faked his own death by drowning, but he wasn't there. He fled allegedly to Europe, Western Europe, I believe. Did you see that?
Eastern.
Eastern Europe, excuse me. Did you see that a video has surfaced on the internet of a woman interviewing a man on a bicycle, and he said he wants to go to Uzbekistan to meet a woman, and then the Green Lake sheriff said, "Hey, that's not him." But
what?
The FBI has now reopened the video, investigating the video further. Did you see this video, Joshy?
No.
I didn't provide it to Hunter because it makes me uncomfortable, frankly. But it is essentially one of those people on the street that has a sign that says, "Ask me advice." This dude that looks just like him pulls up on a bike and says, "Hey, I'm married. I want to go meet a woman in Uzbekistan. I'm an empty nester now." Like, all of this checks the boxes, and they look eerily similar. But the Green Lake sheriff yesterday with our friends on Wisconsin's Midday News on 620 WTMJ said, "Yeah, that's not him." But last night, the FBI gets involved, and they're like, "Hey, we think that might be him." So it's a wild turn of events in this Green Lake story. One of the most fascinating stories I remember ever. I was talking to our friend Greg Matzik, who hosts Wisconsin Midday News. He says, "Yes, this is one of the most fascinating stories I remember covering." So another plot twist in that one. The man is somewhere in the world. We just don't know where. Eventually we'll find out, though. Eventually we will. Justice will be served.
I don't like that. Made me uncomfortable.
What did? The video?
Yeah, just like this all connecting and being even more in depth. Like, do you think this guy ever gets found?
I do.
Part of me says no.
It's too hard to completely disappear nowadays. There's too much technology.
Yeah, it's too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know about, like, what is extradition with Uzbekistan and the United States of America?
Okay, so
I'll do a
in
quick
my
Google
defense,
search.
I am not super familiar with external affairs in this country.
Well, oh, wow, that comes as a shock. Maddie liked that one.
Yes, she did. Maddie Hayes, our social media extraordinaire, sitting in the studio, started laughing. She doesn't even have headphones on right now. She's not even listening, and she knew Josh roasted me in a good way. She just started laughing for no reason. Unbelievable. Anyway, so if anybody else has a what we learned that you feel passionate about, shoot it.
A quick Google search said that Uzbekistan will extradite you back to the U.S., so it's not like some other
Fantastic.
questions.
Wow.
So he could be coming back, and then he's going to have to face the family. Oof. I'd want to be
boy.
there to see that. The awkwardness would be incredible.
I mean, he's still legally married, so his wife.
Yeah.
Oh, that poor lady.
Something tells me she ain't going to be too happy.
No.
Wow. I mean, I imagine it'll be soon to be ex-wife, I would imagine. Joshy, you got anything?
Can you divorce someone? This is another question. Can you divorce someone that fled the country? Like, does he need to be there, or do you have probable cause?
I
to
think
be
you
like,
have probable cause. Yeah.
Maybe it's called
Yeah.
like an annulment, or
Yeah.
Well, because like I
I'm
mean,
not too familiar.
there's that awful
Annulment's through the
joke of
church,
like
though, isn't it?
I didn't hear what you said, Strouf.
I asked if annulment is through the church. I think it is.
I believe that's a legal term.
Okay, I could be
Yeah.
wrong.
I was gonna say that there's like the awful moments of like husbands just abandoning their families like this, and like obviously like those women eventually, like a lot of them would remarry. So I'm guessing there's a way after X amount of time. The things we talk about on this show, man.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, well let's go into the
We got
weekend on
way
that.
too deep.
Let's go into the weekend on that note. Hey, sound advice: don't leave your family this weekend. Don't fake your own death.
Nope.
Drink some Door County Distillery.
Uh-huh.
Play some Underdog. Enjoy some football.
You got it, brother.
The Bears still suck. For Joshy, for Hunter, for Jim Rutledge, for Matty Hayes, I'm Alex Strouf. This has been Mr. Irrelevant, presented by Door County Distillery. We'll talk to you Monday beginning at 12:30. Peace.
Right now I'm 10-0 with the Bears, man, and